Legends of Toy Design panel. We've got a... I'll be moderating, and we've got a table full of very talented gentlemen who worked on the various Masters of the Universe and Princess of Power lines. So why don't we go ahead and start down at the end of the table. Just go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of let everybody know what some of your contributions were to the line.
Okay, there's Eric.
Get up here, Eric. You're late.
Anyways, my name's Dave Wolfram. I started in '85. I worked, the very first toy I designed was the Tyrannosaurus.
And who hired you?
Thank you. Big mistake. right out of Art Center in Pasadena. I also designed one of the other dinosaurs, all the rarest of the end figures, Scareglow Skeletor,
I did that one.
all those guys, Medusa Man, what do they call it? Snakeface, I guess? Yeah. And then I have the dubious sensation of working on the next 3 Masters/He-Man lines as well. Designed most of the evil figures for the 90s version, and then I was the manager for the 2000 version, plus did most all the work on the retro relaunch, I call it.
Okay, next.
Okay.
I gotta play the bad guy, what?
I'm Mark DiCamillo, and I had to work with Martin.
Yes.
So that was my time to tell. But I was only on He-Man for a brief period of time. I helped run design for a while. I was the person that designed He-Man's Power Sword, and I moved to marketing and worked on the marketing for New Adventures of He-Man for a short period of time as well.
It was a failure.
Thanks to Martin.
Hey! What?
Is that it?
That's it.
Welcome to Mattel. Gang warfare. I'm Eric Scott Frydler. I'm a writer, which these guys hate.
Yes.
As well as concept design. I worked on it. See, I told you. Oh, it's so much fun. I also worked on She-Ra, on the line, invented the crystal horses, wrote the package copy, designed their play pattern, created the crystal world that they lived in, and which many toys sprung from. So that originated here. And let's see, with Masters, I worked on Slime Pit. Escape from the Slime Pit is a comic book that's packed out with that toy. It became the template for all writers to follow, so I'm proud of that.
I designed the slime pit.
So we worked in tandem. Didn't even know it. Go ahead.
I'm Treadaway, one of the 4 Horsemen. We've been lucky enough to work on both the 2002 line as well as classics.
Martin Arriola, been on the line. Actually, I'm like one of the few who says that I didn't design He-Man. I didn't. I just worked on the line for about 5 or 6 years. I've been in Mattel for over 30 years. And I just pleased to say that I worked with a lot of talented guys. It was a fun ride. And introduce Eddy Mosqueda.
Oh, yeah, I'm a sculptor. I was there at Mattel since 1984. And I began, on the outside, I sculpted Leech in clay. That was my first entree into He-Man. But then when I came in, I worked on Grizzlor, and I worked on Lizor, and I worked on King Hiss.
Remember Tanglor?
Tanglor, it's just the head and the
long arms.
Eldor.
Eddie's got some stuff that he's going to share with you today.
Really?
That he probably should have came in a Brinks truck. He's got first shots on Eldor, which was back then known as Mentor. He's got Mentor's first shots to show you. He's got a Darius first shots to show you. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the international line. Darius never got produced because he was supposed to do this, and we just couldn't do it because that thing, the inside of his torso looked like an Amco transmission. But Eddie's got him here, and he's ready to sell. So,
well, let's stop teasing us. Why don't you let's show?
Yeah, bust him out.
Yeah, come on.
Eddie didn't want to bring it. He goes, "I'll just bring photos." I said, "No, you moron! Bring the stuff. You better bring the stuff because these people are collectibles. These people are collectors, and we've already got some bids. But if you guys got money, let's show it. I'm giving a percentage.
Wait,
Let's
what?
start off with Eldor.
Sorry?
Or
Okay.
Mentor. Come on, start off with the big one.
I thought
First
that-
shots.
Okay, first shots. Here we go.
Could you imagine working with Martin every day?
Well, here's Darius.
Okay, Darius.
Darius.
He's the.
Actual prototypes here.
Yeah, actually, you can see him. He's got the molded copper, which is not a bad molded copper.
Yeah, well, we had to fight for that.
Yes, we always had a fight for molded colors. You know, metallic colors always turned out terrible. And actually, these are the right. It was rust, right?
Yeah.
And this was metallic as well.
That ball and
Does he
chain
work?
never worked.
No. Thanks for engineering. Okay.
Well, what happened is, actually, I went over and worked with Sentei in Japan and all the mechanisms.
Well, there you go.
And they did a wonderful job, but they were all wonderful, you know, like brass mechanisms. Then we tried to translate them to plastic.
Actually, yeah.
They kept on stripping.
I can
Actually-
actually tell you a story about that. So, there was a fight going on in Mattel between Domestic, which was being run by Joe Barad at the time, and International, which was being run by Lindsay Williams. And International wanted the figures to be smaller because in Europe, the houses aren't as big, and so they wanted the play sets to be smaller and what have you. So we shrunk the size. That's one of the main reasons that the New Adventures
Nothing
got
works.
smaller. But Jill, she wanted to make sure that we had all these elaborate features because the features look really great, you know, in TV commercials, etc. So the problem was for the poor engineers, they got stuck in the middle. Like, we actually had a meeting off-site where we had John Ammerman, who was the CEO of Mattel at the time, and chairman, and then we had Jill and Lindsay. They called me with prototypes to come up to this hotel room to talk about Lindsay's position making the figures small, Jill having the features, and then Ammerman finally said, fine, we're going to do both. And that was the information I had to bring back to, you know,
Well, and that
Mattel
was
building, and then
and that
the
was-
engineers all died, you know.
that was a problem. That was a problem because when we got the first prototypes from Sentei, they were in the 6-inch figure.
Yeah, exactly.
And even in the 6-inch figure, they had bosses on the outside. So the Sentei even cheated when they gave it to us. But they sold it to Jill, and she was the queen. And she said, "You're going to make it fit in this size figure." And you
It
can't.
could happen.
You could not. And that's why Darius never got produced, because it was a bait and switch from Sentei. All right, next, Eldor. There he is.
Hey, aren't you guys glad you're at this panel?
Well, you hold it.
Yours is in color,
I
mine's
sculpted
just
this
in
as well.
pink.
Yours isn't what?
Mine's
That's
just
just the pink
just
shots.
in the pink shots.
Ah, anyway, here he is. Eldor. This man,
Otherwise known as Mentor. He doesn't have the book of, what was it called?
secret.
Book of Secrets? Remember?
Yeah, it was that Chinese
John
puzzle
Hollis.
thing. Yeah,
John Hollis designed it.
yeah, and I did the holograms that went inside it. Remember
Which we never produced, but
Remember those T-Rex holograms that we
Yes,
had
yes,
shot?
for all the dinosaurs.
Mhm.
So there he is looking at the crowd.
Yeah, which is worth a whole lot of money. I mean,
He loves his people.
this is supposedly somebody told me that what's that show that the guy goes and searches for these like toy hunters looking for this guy.
You're kidding.
Well,
That's what I heard.
he
Yeah,
lowballs
true.
everybody though.
Well, he's not gonna lowball this guy. I mean,
Marty wants to know.
this is awesome, man. This is Mentor. I remember Pat Dunn did the Bishi.
Yeah.
Wait, remember?
Was it Pat or was it
No, it was
John
Pat.
Hollis?
No, it was Pat.
Okay.
It was Pat did the Bishi because he had a purple cloak, white beard, pearlescent legs.
Yeah,
Well-
it was like pearlescent, like light purple legs.
I could swear to God, I've been looking all night in my loft for this guy because I could swear I thought I had a hand-painted prototype, but I guess I can't find it. So
They were going to make it bare-legged, and I made a big deal about it. I mean, really, He-Man's mentor,
okay,
bare-legged?
next. Who we got?
This one here.
Okay, next.
Okay, but anyway, so I got put in wrinkles and folds to make it look kind of like a leather pants.
Well, while you're digging through there, let's do some more, how about some Princess of Power stuff? It's
Yeah,
very-
I just want to say it's great being up here with guys I haven't seen for 30 years.
And so your contribution was you did a lot of the crystal stuff. with
Yeah,
Princess
that's
of
right.
Power, right?
Yeah,
You
I'm
brought
not-
some demonstration stuff.
No, I
too,
did.
right?
Most of mine were character invention and writing character design lines. These are the horses. The company had a material that they had a plastic sheen, and they were not sure what they wanted to do with it. They had this new plastic sheen material, at the time in the 80s. So we knew that we wanted to do horses for She-Ra. So what we did is we came up with crystal horses. These are my guys, Crystal Moonbeam, then there was Crystal Sundancer, there was Crystal Swiftwind. And the copy on the back is in first person, wrote the copy, created the play pattern. So yeah, for all those of you who are interested in child development or in inventing, play pattern is very key to any toy you create. But I guess there'll be a question and answer section.
Well, that horse was sculpted by Tony Guerrero, the same guy who
Oh,
sculpted...
Tony Guerrero.
He
Tony
sculpted
Guerrero.
that horse.
Tony Guerrero
And
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Tony Guerrero was like a legend.
He was my mentor.
Yes, and yeah, he's the guy that first sculpted the clay back in the day. This is King Hiss with his armful.
Well, it's supposed to be.
I know it's supposed to.
Remember, he's like, "Hi, He-Man, I'm your friend." You remember the book? It's like, "Hi," and like, you go, "Oh, hi," and then,
Yeah.
uh-oh,
The big dinosaur.
all of a sudden it's this,
It was a snake the whole time. You had
It was
no
funny.
idea.
The funny,
He-Man, I love you.
the funny story about this was back in the day, there was the prelim. There was two departments. There was prelim, and then there was visual design. Wolfie and I were on the visual design side, and Mark DiCamillo, and they would always do the bait and switch. So they would show these prototypes with these snakes coming way out and
All
little
over
wires.
the place, I know.
I was like, God. So then when they threw it over to us, we couldn't get those. They would come out like this, right? So how are we gonna do that? So we just engineering said, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. So finally we said, you know what? Actually, it was Frank Sesto that had the idea. He was a tooling senior vice president. He said, you know what? Forget about that. Let's just put a cover on them and take the thing off and you can see the snakes. That's what we ended up with because we couldn't really show the snakes coming out and really be cool the way it was sold by Prelim.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention the name Roger Sweet because I hate that bastard.
Are we getting a picture?
He doesn't like Mark Taylor either.
I can say what I want. I've been there for 30 years. Where are they going to
Yeah,
fire?
actually, you can.
That's famous word.
You've heard it.
Yeah, famous last words. I'm going to get fired Monday. You got to give me a pass.
So, Mark, you said that you worked on designing the New Adventures electronic power sword, correct?
Correct, yeah, that was, I was in Tokyo with Joe Barad. We were doing Inventor Suite, and that's where we ran into Sentei. And Sentei was a small design shop in Japan that was working on a bunch of different toy concepts. And we were actually back talking to Tomy Toys and a number of different inventors. And Sentei had these figures that had all these elaborate mechanisms that became flip shots, etc. But they also had a karate glove that made sounds. So you could punch with the glove, it made a punching sound, and when you did a karate chop, it made a sound like it was chopping through metal. And they showed us that as just one of their toy concepts. And I went back to my room that night at the hotel and I sketched out taking that sound mechanism and putting it in a sword, because obviously for He-Man that was his weapon of choice. And took that back to them the next day, and that was where the power sword came from. So we used their sound mechanism that they'd put into this glove and we made that into He-Man's power sword.
And I remember going to Monaco to present that. You were busy, so I actually got my first boondoggle at Mattel. And they actually sent me to Monaco to do the demo on that sword. Rockon and Stone Door, anybody know these guys?
Yeah.
He's a sculptor.
Wow. Oh, well, I mean, it's supposed to be like one of the first transforming toys.
Yep.
And I can't take credit for it. I'm glad I can. About how
It was kind of lousy back in the
articulate.
day.
Yeah, I know.
But it is what it is.
It's engineers used to run tooling. Engineers used to have the final word on everything. A lot of things, if you wonder about the older figures, why they look so primitive, it's because tooling had this.
I hated tooling.
Yeah, they said everything had to pull straight out of a mold without getting
Fall out of the
jammed.
mold, I hated it.
Exactly.
And we would look at like G.I. Joe stuff with all that great detail.
Undercuts and everything,
And
yeah.
I'm like, why does G.I. Joe have all this great detail? And we got crap.
I know.
We got that
It
marshmallow.
would regulate like an arm. An arm had to be on what was called a nest, so all the high points.
We had to make follow boards. Remember
Yeah,
we made
oh
follow boards?
man, it was crazy.
Was it
So-
like 2% draft or something?
Yes, it was terrible.
Well, it had to do with costing too, didn't it?
It was cycle time. So the faster they fall out of the mold, the faster they can run the tool.
Yes,
So it's
Well,
not-
especially if
that's-
they don't
that's what
have
I'm saying.
slides, because that ends up
Yes,
being
exactly.
more
Slides
expensive.
cost
That's what I was
It's like
getting at,
when-
it's money.
Yes, because back in the day, when we first started He-Man, it was a rotocast head. And Sesto had the idea, it's selling so great, let's just make it injection molded.
Yeah,
And we had that stupid party line around it. We fought it, but
Yeah.
we lost. What else you got?
Oh, well, we have a reserve here, but I stopped because of some of the stuff that's happened at Mattel when we were there. And Marty and I was there since '84. He was there already 2 years before me, so he had already had his whole, you know.
My
he was-
crew.
Exactly. So I started working with him. There are a lot of stories I could tell, but New Adventures of He-Man, they were talking about logistics of making them smaller, blah, blah, blah. But also they had to make a whole new He-Man. Martin drew the He-Man figure itself, and it was, and I liked it, it was reminiscent of the first one. He wanted to keep the same character. And they had farmed it out to do the figure, and so it wasn't being done in-house. And the guy who brought it in, when Martin looked at it, Martin just about had a heart attack. He was all pissed off.
I was always having a heart attack.
Well, anyway, it didn't even look like He-Man, and especially the one that he drew. So we had a boys manager in sculpting who was
Earl
just,
Wolf.
yeah, this guy was stubborn. I mean, he was really stubborn, and he wouldn't let, because Martin wanted me to make it look like He-Man. He said, "Oh no, he's not touching it. We already gave it to this guy."
Yeah, I'm gonna interject on this one. That's one
I know,
thing.
but-
That's one thing. Let me interject. Go on.
Well, I got the story. I got to tell the story. Let me tell the story. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. It was due that day. It was due that morning. It had to be at the mold shop at 11 o'clock
Oh, I remember the
precisely.
story now. Whatever.
Okay. So, what's his name? Earl was saying, "Don't you even get close to that thing." And Martin called marketing. Marketing called Earl to speak to him about some new characters that they were going to be working on. Martin had me run over to the visiting sculptor's place and change that head. So I changed the head in like less than 45 minutes to make it look as
That's
much
one
as
thing that I want to interject is the big difference now is that we have an in-house sculpting group. There's probably like 15 sculptors, all digital. Back in the day, everything was made out of clay first, and then from the clay we did a final wax, then you made a mold, then you tooled it, right? Now it's all digital, but back in the day, and we can also go outside. I think when Wolfie left, how long have you been gone?
Oh, I started the sculpting group at Mattel.
No,
We
how
went
long have you
over
been gone is my question.
2006.
Okay, you still haven't answered. How long have you been gone?
It's 6 years.
I'm not. 6 years? 6 years. So 6 years ago, even when Wolfie was there, we were kind of had to stick with the in-house sculpting group. But now we have the luxury to go outside, like the Horsemen, which is, well, now you got great talent. But back in the day, you had to stick with the guys that were inside. And it was terrible because some were really, really bad sculptors. They really were. Remember my suit?
Well, actually,
I'm gonna do some trash talk. I'm gonna do some trash talk.
That's why I'm gonna
a really good story of how sculpting worked back then. We had got this really wonderful sculpting for the Bionatops, and
Oh my
sculpted
God.
by
Hal Faulkner.
Hal
Faulkner brought it in.
Great sculptor,
Great
wonderful
sculpt.
detail. The
Beautiful.
Yoshima suit he turned into a
No,
bath
no,
toy.
no, it wasn't my suit, you moron.
Larry.
It was Larry Welch.
Oh, Larry Welch, he turned into a bath toy.
Yes, he turned it into a piggy bank. It was terrible. It was just an awesome sculpt that Hal Faulkner came in with. It had like this character. It was awesome. And when we make a mold of it, and all of a sudden Earl gives it to Michael Larry, and he just starts sculpting away all the detail. And Wolfie and I are like, "What are you doing? It's looking like this." "Oh no, he has his technique." And I'm going, "Well, he just pooched it." Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So I
now,
think we went
the
back
good news is-
completely back to clay again and
No,
redid
it still got screwed up. It never looked as good as it
Never
did.
was good.
It never-
In
it
fact,
never-
I have a piece of that original wax from Faulkner at home.
No way.
I do, yeah.
That's worth some money.
Money.
Eddie, did you
It's
stick
just,
mountain?
you know, it's just partial.
Did you sculpt Snake Mountain?
Oh no, that's a story
Let's
you have
talk
to
about
hear.
it. Let's talk about this.
Snake Mountain
This is a good one.
was sculpted by the same guy who took that sculpture, made it into a piggy bank. But he was also slow, and he would also take long lunches, like 2-hour lunches.
Because he was drinking all day. Okay?
So Martin was in charge of that project.
What a
and
great idea that
it was-
would have been. I
It
should
was,
have
done
been
in, it was done in clay with an armature made out of plastic, but I mean, months had gone by, months. And the thing was like, what, 80% there,
Okay, when
75% there?
he asked about Snake Mountain, you're getting it confused with Mount Eternia. But
The amount of tourists.
Mount Eternia was the one with the big one in the middle, with the cat on the bottom,
Yeah.
and the snake on the other side,
Oh, yeah,
and then the
snake.
castle.
Okay, that's why I said
you remember
snake.
that story?
Okay, well that's
wait,
where I'm going.
Yes, that's where you're going, but it's taking you a long time. Go.
Okay, so anyway, Martin's like, what the hell's going on with that
Panel
guy?
moderator, Martin.
Yeah, we've got to do something, So this idea came to my
It was a
mind.
great idea.
It was like, click, I know what. He's going to be gone for 2 hours. What do you say about this, Martin? I said, why don't I make a quick replica
in clay.
in clay.
And it's
of
taken
the
this
thing.
guy like 3 months to sculpt it.
I'll do it in about 2 hours. And Mossman helped me.
Yes.
Masood helped me. So we had this thing just about done. And then Martin says, okay, now beat the shit out of it. I'm like, yeah, come on, let's do it. So we beat the heck out of it.
Teeth were falling out of the cat.
It was just,
Cat's head was on the floor.
so okay, now let's put it back. And then Martin wrote this letter. Oh, dear Mike, while you were gone, you know,
Marketing.
from marketing. Yeah, we took this for a meeting and.
But we dropped it.
Yeah, sorry, we dropped it. We should have fixed it in time. And here was the funny thing.
So we took his real sculpt and replaced it with Eddie's.
Yeah,
the quick one. All beat up.
So like, okay, he's coming. So everybody's like hiding, cubicles and stuff. And the funniest thing is Mike comes in, and he's like, oh, staggering, and he looks at it and he goes, he went, he goes like this. He almost looked like he was acting. Like,
He had blonde hair.
so
Look
he
at her
turns
circle.
around. Here's what he did.
Look at her beach butt.
He turned around and looked at the wall, and the calendar was a little askew, and he kind of fixed it. And he went back to the thing, and he went back to like boink, like he couldn't believe it, and everybody was like surprised.
Because we thought he was going to go postal. Oh, well, dude, that's all good. It's not good. Here it is. Here's a real one. Eddie did this in a couple of hours.
I know,
You've
why-
done your day.
And why can't you do it in the?
Guy was slow, dude. I don't know.
So,
What are we talking about before?
so Eric, how are you liking interacting with everybody?
That's where I was going next.
I got nothing.
Let's talk about the Four Horsemen and all the great sculptures.
Yeah,
Talk
alright.
as much as listening to what's his name talk. The panel before this, I had to leave. I couldn't take it. Okay.
So Eric, it's you and the Four Horsemen. That's your job to take
What's
everything
yours?
that these guys did and kind of, reinvent it for the current line. So why don't you kind of explain like what your process is for that, how you handle that?
Clay, right?
It is a big question. I left it vague so you can kind
No
of.
digital one.
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, we still do a lot of our sculpting traditionally. Yeah, I mean, it's a different process for us because where these guys were taking ideas and creating them out of scratch, we're taking things that everybody grew up with, the fan base, and recreating it. And so we've got a different type of responsibility there because we need to pay homage to what came before, but at the same time keep it, updated and fresh. And it's always the challenge is how much do you update it before it's too much? And it seems like it's different from figure to figure, and especially coming in the early days for the 2002 line, we weren't really that familiar with the fan base at that point, so we were just doing what we thought was cool at the time, and a lot of it stuck, but there were certainly issues that didn't work out so well, mechanical.
Well, I think the
powers,
hardest part was
things
just
like
getting
that.
the whole thing rolling too, because we had some upper management issues where, they didn't want to make it look like the old He-Man, so we had to kind of come with a modified
I hated that
look
goddamn
and
thing.
all that stuff, but
Here's the deal. What happened? And here's what I'm saying. It failed. This is my own opinion. These guys sculpted the relaunch of He-Man old school. Remember the first one you sculpted? I loved it. It was classic. It looked cool. You did a He-Man and you did a Skeletor. It was all hunched over, and look, the anatomy was old school. Handy was still there, and I don't know what happened, but somebody, anime was the big style back then. And then somebody said, well, let's try anime. I'm not going to blame anybody. But anyways, somebody said, let's have the Four Horsemen sculpt an anime look. So you guys went ahead and sculpted the anime look, which was like with the
A
sculpted.
little more chiseled, longer legs.
It just looked, when I compared the two, I was like, oh, I hated it. Then what do? The more I sent it to market research, of course the kids picked the anime look. And that's what ended up,
Well, actually,
going
I
forward.
think the biggest mistake they made was that they tried to turn He-Man into Batman, and not keeping what really made the original line so important is where it's the
It was
whole
the
world
classic
turning.
look.
Instead of doing, half the case be He-Man's, I think you needed to mix a lot of the other characters in.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
I think that's
they didn't-
strongly
that-
debated
that was- that was-
for a reason.
That was my big argument with Jeff Walker. Of course, he was the head of the marketing group, and I was the manager of design, so obviously he had more pull than I did.
I'm laughing because marketing has a lot to say at the company, even in my day. So that's why I'm laughing. I'm not telling any stories.
Tell us stories.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
you guys have any questions?
Yeah, let's open this up to fan questions.
Yeah, how many of you are toy inventors? Okay,
This guy's a pimp, don't listen to him.
arousing response.
If anybody has any specific questions for any of these guys, we got a microphone right up here. You can just step right on up and ask away. Here comes Molar, attorney and dentist.
Molar.
You guys see this guy?
Jesus Christ. I saw him and I tried to forget him.
I've seen him in Little Shop of Horrors. I know I have.
What's up, Molar?
All right, ask away.
I think you have an appointment. Okay. Just a question about Eldor, because especially for the weapon, for the book of stuff, how it was supposed to work, in fact, the action feature.
There was no action feature in
No,
Eldor.
Eldor was a staff.
Just the
wasn't
book.
Oh yeah, the book
Yeah,
is
he wants to know how it works.
How was it
Oh,
working?
it like a Chinese puzzle. It opened up, then you had to open it like this, then you had to open it like that. So when you open it, you got two different things.
And there were
And
holograms,
right?
holograms of
Yeah.
Preternia inside.
Yeah, so it opened, you know those Chinese things? We stole it from Japantown.
Okay. So, thank you.
Anybody else got something? Come on, you guys gotta have some burning questions for these guys.
How about the ladies in the group?
It's all horned up. So, nothing.
Come on, what are you
Coming,
worried
Danielle?
about?
Danielle's coming.
He won't bite you, I'll make sure of it.
Yeah, I will.
That's what I mean.
I have a question. Guys, thanks so much for coming. My question is, do you guys remember anything toward the end of the line that never came out other than like Hero and Eldor? Could you talk a little bit about, there's one thing, I remember was coming out was the Gigantosaur.
Yes.
Yeah, I designed it.
Yeah, oh really? Could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Okay, actually I do. I have some visual aids
Oh,
here.
look at it. See what you did.
Yay!
It went absolutely nowhere.
Were you just waiting for somebody to ask you for that?
Yeah, he gave her $5.
Because it actually had quite an involved genealogy.
That's a good word.
All right, Wolfie brought his entire portfolio. Come on, man, sober up.
I did bring every He-Man item I had, but
Whoa, that's cool.
which isn't too many these days. I don't know what happened to all of them.
Yeah, chop chop, dude.
Actually, what happened is we had a lot of things got sent to archives. They were encouraging to send all our drawings and B sheets to archives. And then when we moved to the new building, they wouldn't let us access them, and they threw everything away. Prototypes for probably 15, 20 years in Mattel, and all our drawings and everything. So not much was spared.
That's why Scott's having a
Okay, so when after I did
Look
the
at that stupid thing.
after I did the T-Rex,
Piece of
the
luggage.
Bionic, they gave me Turbosaurus to work from. And this is what the original Turbosaurus was. It was, remember that? It was this white.
How could I forget it? I try to blank it out.
It worked. Some things work great in breadboard models, but they don't always look good when you try to make them look like something. It had these huge feet, because the only way to get to stand up on end, the feet had to extend past the center of gravity. So it had these big. I mean, the feet were half the length of the toy. It was really stupid, and it stood up. It was supposed to swallow. I had a figure that it opened up here, and there's this elaborate control room inside, and there was supposed to be a character that hid in the thing, and it had the gun thing on the top to go up that way. There was a wonderful Ed Watts.
Yes, I was just gonna say it. I was gonna interrupt you.
I mean, this shows what you can do with art when you're not trying to be realistic.
What happened?
You looked inside the control room and it looked like it was 60 feet deep.
Yeah. It looked like NASA. You put the space shuttle in.
You had characters like way off in the distance inside.
And Ed was awesome.
It was a beautiful drawing, but it was just all lies.
The bait and switch.
Yeah,
So
Ed Watts was a transportation designer. From
may he rest in peace.
Did anybody hear of Dinotopia from Tyco Toys?
Actually, we had
That wasn't Dinotopia.
So
we had it.
what
was
was it?
Dinotopia.
It was Dino Riders.
Yeah, no, right.
Well, there were both.
Okay,
Tycho.
so anyways, so it stood up and did this thing, but everybody decided at some point it didn't work. So the thought was to make it big. So actually I did a couple different versions, worked with an engineer, and this is what the actual, that's my B sheet for the,
Look at the size of He-Man.
yeah.
That thing was huge. What fit in my car? I'm like, how are we gonna tool this thing?
It had a piano spring that actually, when you press the button, he would shoot up and stand up, tall. So it was very cool. But it came at the end. I think by the time we went to Toy Fair, people weren't even going to the He-Man gallery anymore because
No.
it came so late.
It was
So,
bad.
unfortunately, I threw away the prototype at some point.
Did you?
Yeah.
Don't lie, it's in your garage.
No, I wish it was, but it was too big to keep around the office. And,
Yeah, it was huge. That thing was huge.
but anyway,
Again,
so it ended up being a much better toy, and it actually did make the catalog in I think '87.
it was the death
Are
knell.
those freehand drawings that you're showing?
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
You should explain that, 'cause
Well, I mean,
Before Photoshop.
everything was free. Actually, you got a spray can to create the misty mountains in the background. And,
Yeah, spray mark.
And a spray mark on
Before
the
we
figure
realized
with markers and a little bit of gouache for the highlights.
I mean, he's talking about it like it's nothing, but as you know, as an artist, it's not nothing.
Yeah, back in the day when we started.
Actually, coming from art
I'm
center,
giving you some credit.
Mattel was like a vacation.
Right,
No,
right.
that's true.
of course.
And one of the things people always ask me, yeah, you've been at Mattel 30 years, what's the biggest difference you've seen in the business? And it's not only at Mattel, but everywhere else, the digital world, man. I graduated as an illustration major, just like Wolfie did. I graduated from Art Center College of Design in 1980. You graduated when?
85.
85. When you were there, when I was there was no Photoshop. Everything was a marker. The reason I got that job was because I was a marker wizard. Just marker, marker, marker. Remember back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
And there was no color Xeroxes. You had to actually pay.
I know.
Yes, we used to use blueprint paper
Yes.
and run our black and white drawings on
Back
those
in
and
the
then
day.
and
That
then
is
marker
a-
those.
It was all marker.
That's
Remember we
a-
had to put our initials on all our
Yes,
markers so
yeah.
that Dave McElroy wouldn't steal them.
Yeah, no, it was Roger Sweet that was stealing.
That's a very, for you guys who are in other fields like advertising, the marker comps were like the biggest art in the 70s
Yep.
and 80s. That's a talent that is basically gone.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
That's what I'm
because
saying, it's gone. You're bringing it back.
Well, I'm an instructor at Otis College of
great.
Art and Design,
Great.
and I'm making all my sophomores do markers.
That's great.
Does anybody learn what's a marker? What guys are killing me? I mean, I'm all go by markers.
And that
because-
spray mark was something nasty. Too.
Oh, it was carcinogenic when they started.
Yeah,
but it
that's
was awesome. It was in a can, and
Benzene in it, didn't it?
yes, benzene.
Benzene.
It was terrible, but it smelled like candy. But it just gave me gave me this really,
That's
really
what's rotting your liver.
yes, but it just gave me this really, really brilliant color
Right.
that you just couldn't duplicate. And I remember, I think I had a whole box of it, and I brought it to Mattel. The people were cursing me after that because Back then, it was like spray mark and marker, it was like crazy.
Well, it's
But
like-
again, before Photoshop. There was no Photoshop when we started.
There's also a difference even with Photoshop and freehand. I still
Yes.
prefer freehand.
Yes.
There's a vibrancy, a spontaneity, and it's the same thing in music. I'm also a composer, so I'll talk about that one other day, I guess.
Okay.
And, but it's the difference between live and digital instrumentation.
Right.
That's the difference
No,
that you're
it's-
talking about.
That's totally true, because I remember I started painting on location in plein air, and the reason I started painting was because I read this book by Richard Schmidt, and he said, never project an object. If you put it in a projector and you project it, it's like you're sitting at a player piano and you're pretending like you're playing. I still project because time is money, but I know I can draw it. You know, but I tell my students, don't project it. I'll know. Don't trace it. Draw it. But again, the digital world is now. It's here. But if you cheat yourself and don't draw, and you don't know vanishing points, and you don't know the two vanishing points, or all your vanishing points should be on the same horizon line, you're going to be lost. That foundation of that house crumble if the drawing is wrong. I don't care how you render it, whether it's in Photoshop, whether it's in Painter, you're going to be done because the drawing is incorrect. Or the sculpt is incorrect.
Yeah.
Right?
We've got just a couple minutes left, so if any of you guys have any questions?
Any
Yeah, question?
composing
Excellent, let's hear it.
Hi, I'm actually an industrial designer, and now that you were talking about markers and all that stuff.
Yes.
And I kind of felt good about it, because when I was in college, I was kind of like in the transition towards digital, so we still got to learn to do it by hand, and you know, all the renderings and sketches.
And where are you going to school?
I went to school in Mexico like
Okay.
10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
And we would still do all the markers and all that stuff. And
important.
when I look at the art that you guys worked and all those sketches and all that, makes you appreciate all that hard work that was done back in the day. Even though now digital is kind of taking over, it still has a certain special thing when you kind of like mix them and blend them together to make something,
But again, I think what the mistake people make is that they think that Photoshop is going to make them better draftsmen. It doesn't.
Yeah.
If the drawing's wrong, if the anatomy's wrong, it's wrong. No matter what you do, if the note is wrong and your key is off,
Yep.
it's wrong. It's going to sound bad.
Correct.
So Photoshop and any digital, whether it's sculpting or not, the basis has to be correct. If the basis is wrong, the foundation is wrong, it's going to be bad. I don't care if you do it in Photoshop, Painter, it's going to be wrong because your drawing and your perspective is off, or your proportions are wrong.
Yeah.
Martin
All
will
about
tell
the
you
just a tool.
that he was really one of the best renderers at Mattel.
I was at one time, not anymore.
Okay, quick question then. How, for example, if you presented a render and final markers, all details, how was the process if they ask you like, okay, we have to change this?
Always,
You-
absolutely.
How
I got morons like this guy over here telling me, whoa, this does have to be red.
Yeah, no, because sometimes things like, even like on the very first toy I worked on, the Tyrannosaurus Rex started out as a He-Man vehicle, and then they decided that He-Man the T-Rexes were too evil for He-Man, so it had to be a Skeletor vehicle.
Right.
So originally started out as green, and
It was
then
green,
I went
yeah,
back
with
and-
He-Man.
In fact, I have B sheets of both of those too.
Right. Yeah, and then it ended up purple.
Yeah, purple, yeah.
And they launched that bomb that I stole from
Yeah.
Japan down.
I
I steal from wherever I can.
The Dino Droid.
The Dino Droid. And I brought it back in Max Steel.
Yeah, and I used it a few times too. And
There you go. My slime, I brought slime back 3 times.
Thank you.
It's all good.
All right, one more question here.
Okay, I thought I'd just end it with, which thing were you most proud of that you worked on with the He-Man line, whether it be a figure, accessory, playset, vehicle? I just wondered, for each of you.
For me, it was just being on the line for as long as it lasted, and working with all these really talented people that are sitting next to me. And that's all I can say. Again, I didn't invent it. I'm not the father of He-Man. I just worked on it for the years that it ran. And all I can say is that I was really lucky to be with all these guys.
Yeah, this is a really talented group, and I wouldn't underplay the extension, though. The fact that you extended the line.
We tried.
Right. is a big deal because it kept the line alive. So, not time to play that.
For me, it was He-Man's Power Sword. Because it was really a departure at the time. We'd been all figures and vehicles, and then to kind of take the fantasy from being miniature to being, life-size.
Role play.
Really, the whole role play aspect,
Yeah,
the
good.
role play pattern really was new and fresh, and a lot of the other male action lines at the time didn't do that, and a lot of them followed us and had a lot of extra child-sized toys in the years after that. But we kind of struck new ground.
For me, it was sliming He-Man.
Yeah. All right. Slime Pig.
And for me, I mean, like I said, my very first toy was the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it was a great learning experience. I really cut my teeth on toy design there.
You did.
But then I like, overall the different toys, there's a lot of different things I like, but even going to like, I thought Eldor was really a fun thing we did for Comic-Con one year, where we actually had the Eldor with the multiple heads.
I have that.
It was a very, I thought that was sort of a neat, way to kind of close the loop on him by doing like this pre-story with the other one. So there's a lot of things I like, but I think I have a soft spot in my heart for the T-Rex.
What's your favorite sculpt? You got one? I hate to put you on the line here.
Come on, Eric.
What are you most proud of? Other than your goatee, bro.
It's so tough. I don't know. Recently we got to do the Drago Man figure, so that was the first character that we actually got to design. That's pretty special.
It's gonna be Castle Grayskull, right?
That's a big one. Yeah.
And for me, and for me, I can't pick one. They were all a challenge. They were all different. They were all fun. And this guy made it fun. I know you've seen. I think he was my best buddy at Mattel, and we're
kindred spirits.
I love this guy.
I'm gonna make him as much money as he can for his prototype.
Fantastic. All right, well, that's going to end it off. Let's give it a round of applause.